A desperate viewer started to play Warcraft 3, but came into some troubles. He asked me to look at his replay and to analyze it, and maybe we can help him along a bit. Here's his story. Background, kind of familiar to RTS, and played it since StarCraft and Reign of Chaos launch, but I never actually do it competitively. I just got back to Warcraft 3 after like 6 years or so, studying your Bloody Beginner guides. I'm trying to get back into the game. About the replay, I'm playing an orc against undead, which I get a lot of these days. I have been losing 25 games straight as orc, and I probably need some advice on what is so very wrong. On this specific replay, I think my early game is good. I got some harass into him, but after the Obsidian and Pitlord, I can't do anything to him anymore, and I lose straight. Alright, let's take a look. Dr. Grubby is here to cure your ailments. Kasugano, who plays on W3 Champions, is going to open with an altar. We are playing on the map Shallow Grave. He has 3 in gold, so he started the burrow slightly before the new peon came out, which is actually a thing pro players do in order to make sure that the hero is 2 seconds faster. But I dare say it is not necessary when your altar is this far out of your base. Usually we build it here to have a faster hero, as peons walk slower than heroes. You're also opening with 5 into gold before a barracks. So your intent with this would be single hero harass. I don't see you lining up a Voodoo Lounge, so you will not be able to go Blade Master harass, as you won't have a way to heal up without heal solve and clarity. You quickly corrected the problem of 6 workers in Goldmine. I'm expecting a Farseer here. Farseer harass, fast tech. If it is a blade, it's wrong. If it's a TC, it's wrong. It is Farseer. Here's your War Mill and your barracks. I would say your barracks is like a bit too early. Could be a little later since War Mill takes longer to produce. You're having some worker drops where you don't have enough yet. I recommend to always have 2 peons in production so you don't suffer from idle Great Hole. I didn't think that this was a problem for Warcraft 3 players anymore, since macro isn't that hard. In StarCraft, it's far more important. But you see, this is a returning problem where you very nearly towards the end of a worker finishing start anew, or you even have a few seconds idle time. So just keep in mind, you're going to go straight to 17 population worth of peons, and there's no need to go any slower than that and not line them up yet. Okay, you're building another building. This is too early. Voodoo Lounge is too early. Now, the reason I say it's too early, you can still make a Headhunter, which you've forgotten to do, and your peon hasn't been shift-clicked back to your wood, and you're not making a Headhunter yet. And it's just macro stuffs, right? But the main problem is that you will now have a very slow tech. Now, if you're playing the game and you realize your build order is working as yours is essentially, like every building came out when it needed to, roughly, I'm not looking too much at the little stuff, and your barracks finished and you could have started a Headhunter, but you didn't yet, but you could have, and you could keep making them. Like everything works essentially, and it requires experience to understand why some things are good, why they're bad. So if I tell you your tech is too late, that doesn't have real value for you in your mind until I explain all the little steps behind it. Why is it too late, right? A lot of people that analyze replays, they jump past this point. Like, how would I know that it's too late? Why can't I just keep making Headhunters if I have money for it and simply tech when I have enough? But let's look at a few things logically. You have made a Voodoo Lounge, but you haven't used it. You know, mammals, birds that cease to have the need to fly because they have no competition on a remote island, they lose the ability to fly. Because nature wastes nothing. We should waste nothing either. If we are investing in something but we're not using it, then we could have done something else faster. Making a lounge but not being next to it when it finishes is one of those inefficiencies. And it's not a small one either. you get 10 gold per second. Voodoo Lounge costs 130 gold and 30 wood. Your peon is inside while building. So let's say that that 30 wood is maybe actually 50 or 60 wood of opportunity cost. So you're spending 130 gold and 60 wood on something that you haven't used. 10 gold per second is the rate of mining. So even if only gold were a prerequisite, you would have delayed your tech by 13 seconds. That's why I say it's too late. Not because of some goal that your Tauren chieftain has to be at the dentist at 7 o'clock. And now he can't make it because he's running late. Why did you have to pick up those flowers? We see them every week anyway. Well, it's because it's the right thing to do, because they invited us and they're cooking for us. Okay, I get it, but now we're late, and you know how that stresses me. So anyway, it's not because TC has an appointment somewhere. It's simply because of what can be and what is. Tauren Chieftain or Shadow can come out at a certain time, but now won't. All because of a lounge that you still haven't used. So let's refresh for a bit. I'm now going to use not logical deductions, but I'm going to use real timings. The replay timing of 225 is when a Blade Master Grunt player can go tech to tier 2. And if you're opening with your opening, which is double Burrow, double Headhunter, and Farseer, you can tech at 235. And you're a StarCraft player, so I know you get these things, that they matter. This is when I would tech, 235. Now let's see when you would tech. This is when you could have teched based on money available, 313. And this is when you actually teched. So you are late by 1 minute and 5 seconds. Now let's talk about how that changes your game. In a very simple sense, how this changes your game is that you will have more headhunters, fewer of other things, because that's all you can make right now. You have fewer raiders, you have fewer kodos, shamans, doctors, wyverns. I don't care what you're gonna make, but whatever you are gonna make, you have fewer of. Which would be fantastic if Headhunter was the best unit in the game and the only unit in the game that you should make. And you could probably make some strats with it, but that's not the case. Warcraft really favors a diverse set of units, especially Orc, where each unit does something unique. Shaman uniquely dispels together with Walker, Kodo uniquely gives damage amp aura, a Raider uniquely locks something down, and Windrider is a unique flyer unit. Batrider can blow up, and then the Demolisher has the longest range. The Grunt is not unique because he gets replaced by the better Tauren, potentially. And Witch Doctor uniquely gives healing. Headhunter is a staple unit, to be sure, but he really benefits from the support that every other unit can offer him. Tanking, damage amp, lockdown, etc. So, in a very simple sense, you going for a delayed tech to tier 2 creates a larger Headhunter army. Now, you haven't fulfilled this prophecy because you haven't used your barracks enough, but that's another problem, right? In theory, if all other things are equal and you're playing well, if you tech later than necessary, you will have more Headhunters and fewer Raiders and Kodos, etc. Additionally, you will have more creeping done with Farseer and less with your next. So, the difference between a quick attack and yours is that you will be level 4 Farseer 1 TC, and I will be level 2 Farseer 3 TC, which is better. It's better. TC and Shadow are better heroes than Farseer, but Farseer is a good starting hero because he performs reconnaissance with his feral spirits. He performs creeping without the need to heal because the feral spirits take the damage, which is why we don't need the Voodoo Lounge, right? You never had health problems when you were creeping. So it's not just that you didn't go back to the Voodoo Lounge, it's also that you didn't want to go back. And you didn't need to go back. You didn't need it, you didn't want it, you didn't need the lounge. Now, the only reason, if I were to analyze this, and let's say this was a pro, and I analyzed this, and I would have to come up with a reason, essentially rationalizing why the shop is there, despite not using it, assuming this was perfect play, the only reason this shop would be here is if sometimes this pro player got rushed by an opponent, which required the need for the Voodoo Lounge. That would be my explanation. If this was Lynn or me, you know, and I'm looking at him like, hey, he made a shop, but he did not make a pit stop. Oh, it's there for an eventuality of, for the just in case. It's a necessary insurance policy to go to the next point. So that's the big thing. Your build is wrong. Everything was fine, but the voodoo lounge is not needed. And then there's like the little things with the peons. And then there's also the positioning of the burrow, the war mill. You're actually having a lot of peons like having false traffic, which is why you have much less lumber than you should. It's because you made a very tight gapped opening here. And it just cost you a lot of wood, which also gave you less lumber than you needed to. Note how much gold you have and how little wood. It's because you made the shop. It's because you got blocked and over. They seem like little things, but again, they delay your tech. Then, general macro advice. Peons were sometimes too late. You just queue up more. Same thing with headhunters. Every time a headhunter finishes, a new one should have already begun. Why is that? Well, if your goal was 2 headhunters, you could go for a different build that would look like this. And I'm just gonna demonstrate that really quickly, and then we'll get to the other parts. This is just build up, and I think it's really important. But let's get to the other part and stop the micro stuff, so we can focus on some general strategy things as well. Look, here's what you did, right?
I'd never get anything done.
You went for altar, burrow. I will check that joke later. Thank you, Pringles Pecan. So you went for this build, 2 burrows, a rax, a war mill. Right? And then you had a total of 17 population peon. Of course, you had a voodoo lounge as well, but as I said, that's not good, so we're gonna skip it. And so with this build, I'm just gonna straight up tell you, you can fit in 6 headhunters with a normal tech timing. That's just how it is. And by the time your tier 2 finishes, and the funny thing is, even though I have warp 10, it actually gives the same acceleration to both production and tech. So you can see it's actually true. I have 6 headhunters by the time tech finishes. That is the goal you should have with the build. You had 2. And the rest of the time your Rax was idle. So you need to fire those people there, throw them to the wolves and put new people to work. This will put you at 2931. And then with 1 more burrow, you're gonna have enough space to make a Taran Chieftain and some other units. As you can see, 34 out of 41. 1 raider comes out. And then we can make a troll regeneration. We can make 2 shamans, work on a snare, get another burrow. We're 41 maxed. Burrow finishes, Kodo, shaman, another headhunter, and we're 49. This is why generally we have very normal and standardized unit count, because we all need to fit it into the next burrow's space. Now, if I wanted to go for only 2 headhunters, I would do it differently. I would do it like this. You went for altar, burrow, full gold, mill, rax, second burrow, 2 HH, tech. Of course you made voodoo lounge. And when you have, so you have 2 HH, and then you can fit in 4 more on your way to tier 2. And your, and here's what you could do instead. At 16 out of 21 population, you could make mill. At 17 out of 21, you could make rax. Then you can tech at something like 215. Remember, I said normal tech timing is 235 with that build. Your tech timing was 340, which is late. This one can have like a 215 tech, which is pretty nice. It's quicker, as you can see, by 20 seconds. But you have 0 headhunters initially. That means Farseer 1.0 is solo creeping. And then as you go to tier 2, you can fit in 3 HH. So they are later. Those 3 HH are roughly when you would have your 3rd, 4th, and 5th. That's going to be now your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. But that's how you get a 3 HH build. And the benefit is, again, faster TC, faster raider, etc. So you had all the downsides of a slow tech with none of the benefits. You should have a 6 headhunter army already. And that's just because your macro wasn't there, which is fine. I'm not shaming you. I'm just saying it how it is. It wasn't clean. So now that we have kind of seen your build up and you can kind of understand why you aren't as strong as maybe you could or should be, let's go to the next point. You said you did pretty good harass, and I think it's impossible to do pretty good harass with this little of an army, but let's check it out. Of course, you're playing at your own level, so your opponent is not going to be playing perfectly either. So he's doing a Crypt Lord, he's creeping, you're doing a couple of camps, you get to tier 2, you do a lot of small camps. I think you can aim a little bigger. With 3-4 headhunters, you can aim bigger. Two headhunters down, killed nothing. You killed a fiend. 3 headhunters down, and you killed a fiend. So, as is not unusual, because I've seen some of these Hearthstone analysis replays as well. Is it Imba or do I suck? And usually people's analysis of the situation is not as accurate as one may hope. You did not do a good harass here. You lost 3 headhunters. You basically delivered him 3 headhunters on a silver platter while killing only a single fiend. Still, it's always still winnable. It's fine. Now let's talk about strategy. A bestiary and a spirit lodge. So you've seen Crypt Lord. And I am assuming that you're simply playing the same strat you always do, which is totally fine. In fact, I recommend it. Do want to look at your gold mine now and then. You accidentally have 4 in mine. I think you took out a gold peon to make bestiary. That's something you never want to do. Keep them at 5 all the time. It's going to cost you 20% income. Anyway, I recommend you to always play the same strat, so long as you don't understand countering. It's much better to get experience with one strat all the time than to continually try to counter the opponent. Yeah, see? You don't want to do this, just straight up. But it's fine to constantly play the same thing, as long as it is the most versatile thing you could be doing. And if this is your build, I would expect non-stop headhunter production. Again, you had a lot of idle time. You may not be in the habit yet of control grouping your buildings. I recommend it. And I recommend making it a habit, like chewing on my nails, my fingernails was a habit for me in school all the time. Whenever you're nervous, bam, hit that racks, make headhunter. It's 10 o'clock, make headhunters. You just clicked your TC, make headhunters, all the time. And then from your bestiary, I would expect 1 or 2 raiders and a Kodo, perhaps. And from here, might as well go Bloodlust, I guess. Might as well go Bloodlust. Shamans and Shaman upgrade. But notice how there's a lot of idle time when you finish buildings. And this feels a lot like how I play single player games. But you are playing a competitive game, and that means it's a race. It may be a complicated race, more complicated than, say, F1 racing or, a computer racing game. But it is a race. Even though we're making complicated decisions all the time about scouting and unit types and micro and creep routes and so on, it's also still a race. So whatever you do, do it the fastest. If you have money for a lodge and you want to go lodge, make it the moment you have money, not 20 seconds later. When your lodge finishes, immediately make a shaman. Not, I think, 2 minutes later. You want to go doctor, that's fine, but make it the moment it finishes. It has so much benefits all the time. The difference between having that doctor earlier is so much mana. It's a whole bunch of sentry wards, or none at all. A small note on your creep route. Of course, your creep route is not going to be as good as the top player. Totally normal. But creep route basically consists of 2 things. Good creep routes. Take as big of a camp as you can handle at the time, efficiently, without losing too much health or units. Constantly be on the move. Every time you finish a camp, go to the next. If you're doing macro at home, like making units, first move somewhere new so that you've started that process, then macro. Then you finish a camp, first move somewhere new, then macro. Of course, ideally, everything is when it needs to come. but it's generally best to always be on the move. So while you're finishing a camp, rather than looking at you killing the units, start thinking about what should be your next camp. And even better would be to send a wolf ahead of yourself to see if that camp still exists. And if you find an opponent, to wonder, is this the fight I want to take? Or is this not a fight I want to take? You do have low ground disadvantage where you have mischance. You do get some pretty decent stomps. Okay, now, what do we know about our opponent? What is our vision at this time? Not much. You've never scouted him. You've only seen what he wants you to see, which is fiends. But he didn't have a lot. So he could be going worms, banshees, and so on. Keep in mind before you do this next thing, the only reason we ever attack an undead base is to win the game right then and there. The undead base is so punishing, and he made it even more punishing, a real death trap. The undead base is so punishing because of its bonus regen, the slow towers, the death trappiness, the skeletons at the graveyard that allow for beetle and skeleton production. The only reason to ever show up next to an undead base is either to force them at home or to win the game right then and there. Don't go there unless you're looking to go all in or looking to contain him. So what I'm expecting now, you should have put a sentry ward here. What I'm expecting is you to contain him and to creep everything around his base. If that's your plan, that's really good. Because if you were going all in, you should have had another burrow and spend more of your gold. So you do put the sentry now. The stasis and the attack, this feels more like, oh, I think you overstepped. Now I need to pounce on the opportunity. But this is nothing but bait. There could be no good outcome here. Even if you have way more population than him or whatever, even if you're afraid he's about to get frostworms, this will never work out well. So let's do a very simple task of just counting units. -1. -2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Well, you got the most out of it. You've lost everything you sent that wasn't invulnerable by Town Portal Scroll. And you killed nothing. And that's actually even worse than I expected. And I went into this very pessimistically. So now the game is over. Everything else doesn't matter. And keep in mind that you went for Witch Doctor training, Master I presume, but never used it. So when it comes to not using the potential of what you have, that would be one example. The correct way to play with Witch Doctors would be Sentry Ward. This was good. Taking his natural expansion. You didn't finish it. That would have been good. Put sentries all around his base. Creep as fast as you can. Constantly survey if you can take on his army in the open, not in his base. Recuperate from creeps with heal ward, tech. And upgrade your headhunters in anticipation of a battle. Prepare a 5th burrow to go over 50 if a confrontation seems to become inevitable with the use of your sentry ward map vision. And then go over 50 when it happens. I'm gonna play a build. I'm gonna play a game now after this with your strategy, and I'll show how this strategy is meant to be played. Even though this is not a strategy I've ever shown, I think it's not necessarily one I would recommend to people, but you can make lots of different things work so long as you play them how they want to be played. How Witch Doctor wants to be played, I'm gonna treat it well. I'm gonna take care of them. I will show you, and then you can compare the timings. You can simply take my replay, which I will send to you on Discord. You will compare the timings of tech, when the second hero came out. If you are hardworking and you take this seriously and you are motivated, you will take a notepad, not on the computer but on paper. I believe it commits to memory better. And you will write down your tech timing, your second hero timing, your third hero timing, your Witch Doctor timing, and maybe like a 10-minute benchmark. How many headhunters do I have at 10 minutes? What's my upgrades at how many minutes? You write those things down maybe like 3 to 5 different benchmark timings, and also the timings of key heroes and upgrades and stuff. And then you do that for yourself and you do it for me. You can compare. Now you know the potential power, and then every time you can measure your progress from this pivotal moment of when I looked at the replay. You can measure your progress of this, we'll call this ground zero, game 1. Next time you play another game with it, you can compare, are you better than game 1? You don't have to play the timings as well as me, but you can compare them. And then game 3 and 4. And all you need to do is to be infinitesimally, marginally better than your previous game. While having fun, of course. Okay, I've seen enough. A very good replay to send in. And always fun to see people motivated to get better at RTS. I love it. Hope you found this useful and find the follow-up useful. I will now play your build.